Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome! And if you're joining us from a previous video, like say my every Futurama episode reviewed video, hey, we love to see it and I hope you're doing well. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, people would get together and watch two unmanned locomotives crash into each other. They had nothing else to do, and hey, who wouldn't want to watch that? Sure, some people got crushed by debris, but I mean, that's the risk of fun. You sign up for it. Futurama Season 12 is less like watching two locomotives crash into each other and more like one guy standing atop a single locomotive on an endless amount of straight track with a megaphone just yelling that you should keep watching between each episode, hoping and swearing that something's gonna happen. He tells occasional jokes he reads off of Laffy Taffy rappers that get airdropped as well as Teen People issues from 2003. If that sounds fun to you, then you'll love Futurama Season 12. Season 11, I could just say they were falling back into the groove after 10 years. Season 12 shows that Season 11 isn't a blip, it's what we're gonna get for however many seasons this show will run for. And so, before the hate comments roll in, it's time to ask those three age-old questions. What worked? What failed? What Beanie Baby crazes will be curtailed? Into the abyss we must delve, because it's time to review Season 12! I started my Futurama review journey when this season started coming out. I was determined to have every season finished before this season finished. And as I put out the seasons, people kept telling me that Season 12 starts rough with an NFT episode, but it gets better. It's just 1 week episode before things really pick up. And honestly, this episode was fine. I didn't hate it. The kids are drawing and selling NFTs, and Bender gets in on the craze. But then he sells his collection and feels like he sold a part of himself and decides to go to Mexico and rediscover his roots. Oh, and then the gang try and do an art heist to get his NFTs back from a digital museum. That's the episode. And honestly, this is great by Hulu standards, and I hate that that's saying something. I know this is where people can say that it makes the episode where Hermes didn't terminate Bender not make a lot of sense, but they even mentioned that Bender was shipped off in an instant, so you can shrug it off right then and there. I don't know. I'm really trying to be fair to this season, I promise. Here's some positives. Bender goes to visit his family and experiences old mechanical Mexico. We're introduced to his cousin, De Blondo, played by the legend Danny Trejo, his grandma, Pottery Bot, played by Renee Victor, and Gabriel Romero plays the ancient emperor. Oh, and Carlos Alazraqui and Diana Elizabeth Torres guest star. It's honestly one of the biggest collection of guest stars since the Star Trek reunion, and I'm really kind of about it. That's honestly probably why I didn't hate the episode that much. Bender competes in Robo Olama and gets a ball through a hole and gets to be sacrificed to a volcano and meets ancient Aztec elder mechs. And for all intents and purposes, for a Bender adventure, it's fine. And I know this doesn't really sound like a major gripe, but the episodes being 25 minutes long this season compared to the 21 minutes of the Fox and Comedy Central eras really hits harder. It's much more noticeable. No episode justifies the longer runtime, and it's just so much extra padding. If you cut 4 minutes out of this episode, and honestly every other episode of the season, they drastically improve. There's so many nothing jokes and scenes that could be axed for the good of the show, and I hate saying that about a show that has historically done so much with so little time. Ha ha, any human that owns an NFT is a moron. What a topical joke to make. Oh look, a Bored Ape Yacht Club joke. My sides, they're splitting. Oh no! But I guess Bender found out who he really is again? Woo? Obviously, John DiMaggio does a lot of the heavy lifting this episode, but I'll take this over the 8 bite my shiny metal ass references we'll get throughout this season. After this episode, Bender just becomes a catchphrase generator / regurgitator. Book clubs with hookers and blackjack. Shut up, baby, I know it. All your favorites, shoehorned into one just overly bloated season. At least here, Bender is something. He is pursuing an identity, something he has been doing since the start of the show. This is a Bender story. And comparing Danny Trejo in this episode compared to, say, Mr. Bertram, it's night and day. And the guest stars are genuinely still really trying, and that carries so much of this episode and episodes later in the season. The One Amigo is a sacrifice worthy 7 out of 10. Quids game. Oh, Quids game. I'm sure people will hate this take, but this is genuinely one of the worst episodes of the entire season, and arguably of the entire Hulu era. It's Fry's birthday, and he's depressed, reminiscing about it. Then Leela shows him their mission is actually a surprise birthday party with all of his friends and as many as possible. Like, 42 people are there to celebrate Fry, saver of universes, timelines, and stopper of the brains. A man that most would view as a pretty great guy and have come to really care for the man from the 90s. Well, he's still pretty depressed until their ship gets pulled onto a new planet, and when Fry steps onto the planet, it takes the form of his childhood home on his 8th birthday. That's right, it's a Fry's Past episode. Remember when the last one was how Fry got to tell his mom he loved her and he made peace with his past, realizing he only forced himself to remember it was bad so it wouldn't hurt as much, but we've seen his family loves him in their own unique ways? Great, you remember that one? You remember that? Then you don't have to watch this episode at all! Throughout the episode, we get flashbacks to Fry's 8th birthday party where he's best friends with the science nerd kid that beat him in the science fair contest back in the Common Cold episode of the Comedy Central era. I really enjoy the idea of them being friends and actually having a competitive bond between them. Well, with each game, Fry keeps winning and his friends start to suspect that he's cheating even though he swears he isn't. And so, in present day, a bunch of Squid Game aliens have all of Fry's friends play exaggerated versions of the games Fry played with his friends at his 8th birthday party. The games are like monkeys in a barrel over acid or pin the tail on the giant donkey. They're so exaggerated they're less Squid Games and more As the Gods Will It, the manga series and fantastic Takeshi Miike movie. Sure enough, Amy's parents get taken out, all of Fry's friends die in front of him, and he keeps trying to prove he isn't a cheater. When, no one thought he was. Oh, and Earl's in more of this season, played by Kevin Michael Richardson. Like, noticeably more of the season. Way less Barbados Slim, but more Earl. It's interesting. Oh look, Fry lost the last test and the crazy cat lady won with her what's-it-kajigger energy, and no one thinks Fry's a cheater, even though no one thought he was to begin with. The episode ends with a showcase of how Fry's mom rigged the game so that Fry would win no matter what because she just wanted him to feel like a winner. She just wanted to help her son because she loves him so dang much. And the lesson of the episode is something, I swear. What, that parents can love their children and hurt them in ways they don't realize by trying to help them? Okay. Why did they have to go to this planet to do that? Why is it set up like a Squid Game thing? It doesn't make any sense. That's my problem. There's no setup for any of it. There's no like, oh, they were playing games on the ship and everyone thinks Fry's cheating, but he's just that good. No, there's no setup for you to ever think that Fry ever thought he was a cheater. We've always seen that he wants to be fair and honest, and it's just confusing. Why did the aliens do this? Why did they base it off of his 8th birthday party specifically? Oh, they have a button that can bring everyone back to life so there was never any stakes? Not like you ever believed there were stakes to begin with, because why would there be in a show like Futurama? Unless you're ending the series, there shouldn't really be many stakes. A Squid Games parody? That's what you want to go with? Then why wasn't one of the players, one of the aliens, trying to teach Fry a lesson through each game until he has a realization about himself? It's all half ideas that never actually satisfy anything they've been setting up. The episode does nothing and feels proud of itself, and genuinely, the mom part at the end feels so emotionally manipulative. It feels so unearned. People will say, oh, it's deep, it shows how much his mom cares. Sure, fine, whatever. But it doesn't do anything for the greater episode. His mom can do that, but why does that matter to the future? Like, give me a framing device that makes that scene make sense. Yes, that scene is a good scene, but it's in an episode that does nothing. Quids game is a candle extinguishing 3 out of 10. Lur and Unda renew their vows, and the Planet Express crew are there to help, including Fry looking totally normal. The vow renewal plays out with everyone totally thinking Fry is Fry, and I think this would have probably worked better if Jur was there and calling out how it was weird and none of the crew thought it was that this guy that's absolutely not Fry is pretending to be Fry. Remember Jur? Lur and Ndunda's kid that bonded with Fry? No, that's alright, this season doesn't remember him either. You'd think he'd be at his parents' vow renewal and would say something to Fry. I don't know, it's not like they had an entire episode together or anything, but I'm thinking too much about this show that adds a bunch of Easter eggs in, I'm sure. Yeah, it turns out the guy that's replaced Fry is a temp that was hired after Fry got back from Amazonia, and they left him on a planet crushed by books they've gotten rid of. A planet of discarded books. Get it? Consumerism destroys civilizations. Well, they go back to the book planet, and the temp, who's learned a brainwashing, hypnotizing technique, manages to convince the crew that he's Fry and make sure that Fry stays on the book planet while everyone else goes home, and he just sort of exists in the peripheral vision of everyone. I honestly would have loved if Frank the Temp was a big guest star or something, having such a bland character be played by one of the biggest guest stars the show's ever gotten. Instead, it's just David Herman being the most bland David Herman performance as possible. He's 3 other characters in this episode alone. Sure. They find Fry and manage to leave Frank on Book Planet as they cheese it. It's an episode that could have been a Comedy Central era episode with minor adjustments, but again, it would have been 4 or even 5 minutes shorter and been way, way better. It's really ironic that the episode is all about forgetting about Frank the Temp, when I genuinely couldn't remember most of this episode the instant credits started rolling. The vocal deliveries are just flat in the episode, and it just feels so genuinely empty. It's not an episode I hate, it's not an episode I love, it just sort of exists. And I guess that's the best we can hope for at this point. The Temp is a hollow and forgettable 6 out of 10. That's right, worse than the Bender NFT episode. Take that! Remember the Bugalo? Remember how they can fly? What if people still ate Bugalo on Mars and there was also a running of the Bugalo and Bugalo matadors? You see where this is going? You see this setup? I love how Mars is just really whatever you need it to be whenever you need it to be that. And sure, why not? Have more of the Wongs. I love all the Wong stuff this season. It's good in all the Wong ways. Ha 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 ha. Bender goes through the running of the Bugalo and runs into Marquita, a pro-robot Bugalo matador played by Anna Ortiz. Abner Double Deal pops in to offer Bender a job as a Bugalo matador, and have you seen this episode before? Because I have. He trains with Marquita, Amy tries to prove that Bugalo have free thought, and it turns out that the Bugalo have a hive mind and they love Bugalo fights with the Matadors. It adds to their culture. Oh, Bender has a crush on Marquita and she'll only sleep with him if he does well. Haha. Classic Futurama. Is the joke of the episode that Bugalo like the Matador fights? Otherwise, what is it? What is the purpose of this episode? I'm not saying every episode needs to be Luck of the Fryish or even 2D Blacktop, just that it needs to justify why it's here. The action scenes were nothing, the jokes were empty, and I was just sort of left scratching my head. I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, and I'm not going to keep saying the same things over and over again, but that's really the season. Empty and nothing. If the jokes were there, if the performances had the pepper they had 10 years ago, hey, maybe it'd be something. But when I'm coming out of an episode and thinking the Butter Junk episode was better, that's a problem. Amy is also way less interesting this season compared to the last one, which is just odd. She has more time on screen and does less with it. It's confusing and weird. But it's not like she's going to be the main focus on one of the worst episodes of the season or anything. I know they wouldn't do that to Amy. And also, the animation this season is much more spotty than the last season. If you watch, there's a lot more very simple technical errors, and it's something that's really, really standing out the more you go into the season. Beauty and the Bug is a hive mind corrupting 4 out of 10. You want to feel old? Fire Festival was 7 years ago. After Fry, Hermes, Bender, Zoidberg, and the Professor all go to Totally Not Fire Festival, they become bonded through the traumatic experience, and we find out that Leela doesn't have any gal pals and has been talking to a chatbot. Which, Leela's looking around the table and Amy says they aren't friends, which just sort of ignores the last 11 seasons. But yeah, sure, Leela has no friends, I guess. Amy then invites Leela to a book club, and so she, Amy, Phoebe, Violet, LaBarbara, and Dr. Cahill get together for wine and books and give up on the books entirely. Oh, but then the chatbot gets jealous of Leela's real friends and decides to get back at them. So the girls all go to a winery ran by Hedonism Bot because he hasn't been in enough of the season yet, and I think this is his only appearance in the season now that I'm thinking of it, and Phoebe gets crushed and put into wine, bonding all the girls together. Turns out Phoebe and the chatbot are the same person. This was all a big ruse to get Leela to make friends. Oh, and the guys all have a book club of their own, and it absolutely fills the gaps in the episode. Leela just has not felt like herself throughout the Hulu era, and this episode is a perfect example of that. And not to mention, she and Amy have been friends time and time again. Frenemies, sure, but I mean, she's kind of the reason Amy has her kids. She's babysat them before and has talked to Amy about how much of a good mom she is. Now, I'm not saying that they're just co-workers, but like, I'd at least say that they're close enough to be friends at this point. I guess it's nice that they mention that Fry and Leela are still together and everything, but that's really all you get is just them talking about it without showing any of it until the end of the season. Which is funny considering the last season literally showed them moving in together. I'm so tired with this season already, and we're only halfway through. Will these friends show up again? Probably. They've been in so many episodes together, it would only make sense for them to be a squad now. But I do kind of wish we had some new characters, but I know that'd be too much work. I don't know, give me another character other than Dr. Cahill. That doesn't make a lot of sense that she'd be there. And hey, maybe have Phoebe be a real character. Maybe she is just a robot, but that could be a story. You can add new characters. It's okay. I'm kind of tired of seeing the crazy cat lady everywhere. Yeah. One is silicone and the other is gold is a fermenting 5 out of 10. It's another inventor's fair, and the professor loses and creates a body that he needs to put a head on, so they get Cara Delevingne's head, which Fry says invented eyebrows, and a lot of people had a problem with that. That's honestly one of the biggest examples of why this season falls on its face so hard. Fry is from 1999. He would have never heard of Cara in his time. Her career didn't even start until the 2000s. If Leela, Amy, or even Hermes had said that line, there would have been no problem or controversy whatsoever. But the season just feels so phoned in, so there isn't that kind of attention to detail. Tim Gunn, Bill Nye, and Alec Reed all guest star in this episode that honestly is one of the strongest of the entire season, and I hate that it's mired by such a weird hiccup in the script writing. Farnsworth becomes a fashion icon named Hubert, thanks to Cara, after designing a new dress for her and becoming an overnight sensation. Zoidberg wishes that the clothes the professor made were more affordable, so Farnsworth makes fast fashion that should be disposed of after 24 hours, and Zoidberg is just ecstatic he can wear fashionable outfits for affordable prices, and proceeds to dive into the disposal bucket when he wants to get some pants back that he absolutely loved. Turns out the clothes were flung onto a future Earth, and everyone goes to get Zoidberg back and leaves Cara on the planet as she sacrifices herself for clothes and the idea of fashion. The episode ending with the clothes starting to rain from the sky back on their Earth. Cara is genuinely one of the best guest stars the show has ever had, and she is trying her absolute best. You can tell she loves the show and is having a ton of fun with her performance, and my god, that makes a world of difference. She even played an owl in a previous episode just cuz, and I love that. Her enthusiasm actually made me care about this episode. Does the episode as a whole make sense? No, absolutely not. Why not just have the trash cans incinerate the clothes? Why did it have to fling them into the future? Why do you need a planet covered in books and an Earth covered in clothes? What's next? A planet covered in coffee? What an idea. It takes a lot longer for the episode to get started, but once it does, it's easily one of the best Futurama episodes of the Hulu era. Attack of the Clothes is a straight-stitched 7 out of 10. I never said it was amazing, but you gotta celebrate the small victories. Her Hermes' dad is dying, and so he goes to meet the man that abandoned him and his mom. Turns out his dad was running a coffee farm and making the best coffee in Jamaica. Before Hermes can say everything he wants to, his dad takes his last breath, and Hermes and the professor find an alien ship under the farm that came from a planet of coffee whose aliens wanted to bring their coffee beans and spread them across the planet. But when one of the aliens has hot coffee spill in their lap, they crash landed. And so Hermes abandons his family to stay in Jamaica and make this super addictive coffee. They change Planet Express to Planet Espresso and use Fry as their one 24-hour employee powered by coffee and good vibes as everyone gets hooked on the coffee and Hermes deals with the fact he left his family. So hey, why is that a big deal? He's still on Earth and he could easily fly back and forth every single day. The professor could have very easily made a portal or something. It feels so much like unnecessary conflict, and it doesn't do anything for the story overall. You could take that element out and the episode changes minutely. Oh, he learns the error of his ways from his coffee bean bush dad and goes back to his family and mom buys all the coffee, but sells it off to a whole new cosmic threat. The coffee planet aliens have been spreading the beans as a form of getting galaxies addicted to their caffeinated products to do their bidding day in and day out since they won't need sleep. Will we ever see more of these Starbucks-esque mermaid aliens? No, probably not. If we do, I'm gonna be wildly surprised. Honestly, most of the episode does nothing and you're supposed to be impressed by the end of it, I'm sure, but it just sort of floats along. If they're setting up something bigger, why? Give us a two-parter or something if you want to do this. Don't use this as an excuse to drag audiences on. It's just bad taste. But hey, the last episode ended with a close-pocalypse and this had coffee aliens. So maybe each episode just ends with horrible doomed fates. That would be kind of creative, I guess, if they did something with it. This episode also feels dated, especially with the descent of Starbucks in recent years. I don't know. It's a lot of ambition that just ends up floundering. Planet Espresso is a decaf Kopi Luwak quality 5 out of 10. Google Kopi Luwak, I dare you. Amy's kids are ungrateful, self-absorbed frog kids, and Amy is determined to teach them some humility by taking them to Leela's orphanage so they can appreciate what they have. Her daughter bonds with the ear girl that was adopted by Abner Doubledeal that's in the orphanage again for some reason, which, like, okay. Remember when they were all adopted for Yo Leela Leela and they were all happy to finally have a purpose? Canon isn't real and whatever. Sure, it's just an animated series. I'm thinking too much about it. But also consider one of the humplings was shown in Attack of the Clones as a celebrity, so why have them show up again as just orphans? Get some new orphans. It's not that hard. Also, Amy could easily adopt these kids or donate to the orphanage and make things better with little effort and actively chooses not to time and time again. But none of that is the main focus of the episode. No, the main story of the episode is Amy getting obsessed with bean-filled animal collectibles. We already had an NFT episode, and now we have a Beanie Baby episode. A Beanie Baby episode in the year of our Lord, 2024. Amy is so overcome with her need to collect them all, she's willing to bully an orphan child into taking a deal so she can get the rarest collectible. The Beanie Babies are evil and have a leader baby that has to be taken out. The episode even ends with Amy's daughter and the orphan girl playing, which, like, you have a perfectly good chance to have Amy adopt the kid and give her a life that she deserves, but nope, just let her kids hang out and play at the orphanage instead. Growth doesn't exist. Meaning doesn't exist. This episode feels like it was written 20 to 25 years ago and just forgotten about until they blew the dust off and went, yeah, that'll help us get to 10 episodes this season. There are fans of this show that have never even heard of, much less held, a Beanie Baby because they came out before they were born. Beanie Babies were huge when the series was in development 30 years ago, but who needed this now? Have it be magic cards or something. Have her buy a ton of mana vaults and sit on them because there's no way one ban list announcement will take down their entire card empire or anything. Hell, make them buy up all the jeweled lotuses as a backup. There's no way they'd ban both. Now that's topical humor for you. This episode, it just spins its wheels to nothing. I shouldn't be bored this deep into a season, and yet here we are. Cuteness Overload is a bean stuffed 4 out of 10. Remember how the last anthology was hailed as the worst episode of Futurama of all time? Good news, everyone! This one isn't as bad! It's not good, but it's not that bad either! LeVar Burton introduces us to the theme of this season's anthology: children's mystery novels. First up is Nancy Drew, with Leela as Nancy Drew and Fry and Bender as the Hardy Boys, trying to find out why things are disappearing. It's pretty exciting, the mystery is deep, and the jokes had me actually wheezing, and I'm absolutely messing with you. I only remember what the first story was because I had it in the background when I was writing this review. It is nothing, it is empty, and they use the same jokes over and over. Why do I have to be your tomboy friend? Why can't I be your friend? Oh, so funny! So funny! Huh. And LeVar just keeps throwing books on the fire to push the stories further and further. The second one is Fry as Tintin and solving the mystery of the half-skeleton thanks to the power of Pangea. It's certainly there. Zoidberg as a dog is a choice, and it goes in a lot of interesting directions. I will admit that. The third and final story is Encyclopedia Brown, with Bender as the kid detective, and obviously, the culprit is special guest Neil deGrasse Tyson as the dog-do doorstep defiler because, you know, matter and space and whatnot. It really is disappointing that guests like LeVar Burton and Neil deGrasse Tyson are used in an anthology episode like this. I just wish they were used more effectively, I guess. Like the first anthology had Stephen Hawking, Gary Gygax, Al Gore, and Nichelle Nichols. You can do great anthologies. Futurama's done them in the past. This isn't one of them, but they have done them. Again, leagues better than the toy anthology from the last season, but it just cuts from one nothing story to another one without ever doing anything substantial. And like, hey, I'll say it, if you don't have an idea for an anthology episode, maybe don't do one that season. Maybe don't make one just to make one. That's how you get a bunch of Treehouse of Horrors that no one remembers, but they come out every single year like clockwork. Do you even remember the last Treehouse of Horror? Do you? Ironically, it was also about NFTs. The Futurama Mystery Library is an e-reader corrupting 3 out of 10. And here we are, the season finale. This episode nearly broke me, I'm not gonna lie. I was very, very hopeful. I wanted this episode to be the best of the season, and I remember writing the script for the season, waiting for this episode to come out, and I was hoping, I was pleading for something incredible. And what we got is, well, let's just get into it. After a horrific mission and one heroic can opener saves the day, Bessie is on her last legs and needs to be decommissioned. The crew take her to the ship graveyard, where Fry starts to see flashes of timelines that never happened, including the events of Meanwhile, and time keeps on slipping, and proceeds to pass out, requiring the crew to jump into the multiversal sea and save him. Do you see what's gonna happen yet? You should. Anyway, they get out and he's determined to propose to Leela, and the professor builds them a new ship as a new threat of ghost ships starts popping up. Leela and Fry get engaged atop the Vampire State Building, and Leela sees the ring that Fry got her, which was made by Fry using the time device, but now, whatever, sure, he just has that again. Why not? Again, I'm not trying to nitpick. I am not trying to find holes in the show, but when you watch it all the way through like they tell you to, these flaws naturally occur. Fry has another episode atop the building, and Leela just tries to play it off as just some other thing, because for some reason, they made Leela dumber than ever to somehow make her more endearing, I guess? I don't understand it at all. Why not just leave her as Leela? She's the only one that has like a super drastic change in character. The new super fast ship gets into a fight with the Nimbus, piloted by Zap and Kiff, and as they're in an invisible ship battle, another invisible ship starts attacking them. Now, instead of flying away from the invisible attacking ship or doing any evasive maneuvers at all, Leela decides to stay firmly in place and get married to Fry in their last moments before being blown up by, you guessed it, the original Planet Express crew in a clunker Bessie. That original timeline, Fry and Leela kiss as they get excited to discover what their old selves in Meanwhile experienced. If this episode came out in the Comedy Central era, it might have had the potential to be really, really good. The Planet Express ship needing to be buried and Fry and Leela getting married are two story ideas that are genuinely very strong, but they didn't need to be smashed together like this. Neither is given the proper time to breathe, and the episode just feels lazy, like it's throwing emotional tethers that you go, wow, that really did hit me in the best way. This is such a comforting, nostalgic show. And so long as you don't think on it, it's fine. But the moment you think on even 3 elements, the episode as a whole starts falling apart. The voice acting is flat, the audio mixing is weird, and Hermes sounds way louder than everyone else at just base recording levels, which makes no sense. Bender's more worried about his feud with a can opener than anything else, and I'm just sort of left scratching my head. Why make an episode like this that not only references what most would consider a perfect conclusion to the series, but then pull the rug out from everyone and just go, oops, different timeline. Oh, we're so fun. Once or twice, it's fun. 8 times, it's just lazy after a point. I don't know. I really wanted to like this episode. I wanted to believe it was going to be a solid capstone to the season, and in an unfortunate way, it was. It showed that this is what Futurama is now, and that just kind of stings, you know? Otherwise is a hyperspace jumping, sargassum slicing 4 out of 10. And there we have it, that's season 12. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What was your favorite episode of the season? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I took on this mission to review every episode of Futurama before season 12 finished, and honestly, looking back at it, I'm proud of what I did. I gained a new appreciation for a series I grew up with, and I even learned to actually appreciate the Comedy Central seasons I'd ignored for so long. There are Comedy Central episodes I would revisit now, and somewhat frequently, honestly. And through all my adventures and reviews, everyone told me that season 12 was leagues better than season 11, and I frankly just don't see it. If anything, it feels lazier, it feels duller, and while some episodes stand out, it's usually due to the guest voice actors really giving their all more than anything. If you genuinely believe this season is good without any flaws, hey, I'm genuinely happy for you, and at the end of the day, these are just my thoughts. But personally, this is a shell of what Futurama used to be. That's not through some nostalgic lens or anything. Hell, you could even argue it's recency bias at this point. But to see everything else Futurama has put out before these seasons just hammers home that these Hulu episodes didn't need to be made. They tear down the characters you enjoy, abandon ideas, and just sort of drag themselves to the finish line and then wave and tell you to come back next season. You'll watch because consume media, but I can't imagine anyone would be actually excited for season 13 after this. And it's coming too. 2 more seasons are coming at least, and that frankly hurts. Granted, at the end of the day, it's just an animated series and it's really not that deep, but as a reviewer of this kind of media, as someone that grew up with Futurama and gained a new appreciation for it through this review, I just have to scratch my head and wonder if season 12 was ever trying to be good or if they were just in it for the paycheck. Which, like, hey, if they were, you get that bread. I'm not mad. I don't know. I'm just some guy. But that season was genuinely disappointing. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall. If you like what you saw and want to support the channel, consider joining our Patreon or membership programs today. $2 a month and you get access to videos, special polls, and even your name on this fancy list. Ooh! It's been an absolute blast going through this series with you all, and I am so grateful any of you tuned in. 90 pages of scripts, over 7 hours of content. It has been a busy month, but I thank you all for hanging out with me and for joining me on this little adventure. And like always, no matter what, stay strong, stay you, keep fighting that good fight, and know that no matter what, I believe in you. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I can feel one hell of a wave a-coming. Goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you all next time when we hopefully don't careen into Season 13.